Day 15 inside the courtroom in the case against R&B superstar R. Kelly. It's federal court, so there are no cameras, but we do have these sketches. But we've got more than just sketches, folks. We've got Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae, who's joining us live tonight from Brooklyn, New York. Julia, great to see you. Let's begin with the backup dancer, Angela, testifying today. What did she have to say, and how powerful was this testimony?
Vinny, her testimony was one that reverberated through the courtroom once she was done, through the courthouse. You could see people running as far as media wanting to make sure they got the information out that she testified about on the stand, because it really went to a pain point in this entire case and the prosecution of this defendant. Now, Angela went by just her first name. She wanted to be anonymous as far as her last name. She's someone who was on tour with the defendant, and she testified that she actually met him when she was only 14 years old, that she went to his apartment and he put her in a group of other girls to be a singing group to go on tour with him. She said that she started having sexual intercourse with him early on in that relationship, that sexual relationship continued until she was between the ages of 16 and 17. That's actually when it waned, she said. And he also said, or she said rather, that he introduced her to the R&B singer Aaliyah when she was 12 years old at the time, and that there was an occasion later from that she walked in on Kelly performing oral sex on Aaliyah. She testified that that was between 1992 or 1993. She wasn't very specific about the year, but doing the math, that would have made Aaliyah between the ages of 12 and 14 at that time. So we're seeing something of what things were like inside the musical world of this defendant when he was first starting or rising to fame. We know Aaliyah was his protege, that she was someone who was working on albums with him, and we've always heard rumors and things that were never confirmed when it comes to their relationship. But we know about the marriage. That is part of this case and prosecution against him as far as a bribery charge. But hearing today that this woman, a girl at the time, walked in when she thought she was playing a prank on the boys who were in their group, and says that she witnessed this and saw it, and just something that goes to the overlying case against this defendant, because he would have been in his mid to late 20s at the time of that incident.
Absolutely shocking testimony. Let's bring in the think tank. Julia, we'll get back to you in just a second. Okay, see you early. Jennifer Brandt, Michael Bixon still with us. Michael Bixon, how devastating is this testimony tonight?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's a question that, it helps. I mean, obviously it hurts the case for the defense. The question is how much. And I think a big portion of that comes down to how reliable it is, how much the jury is actually going to believe it. That's obviously up in the air. But when you get somebody that's, I think, credible, that comes in and makes testimony like this, yeah, obviously it is damning and it does hurt his case.
Jennifer Brandt, this to me is gets to the heart of what prosecutors are alleging R. Kelly is all about. You've got a young, I'm going to say woman. She's not a woman yet. She's a girl, and then a teenager, and then another. Aaliyah's just a girl when she meets R. Kelly, 12 years old, and early on in that relationship, this alleged act takes place that is witnessed accidentally by this witness. Jennifer?
Well, I think it's very damaging testimony and very disturbing, and I think this witness sounds to be very credible. I mean, she was young at the time, that's true, but I mean, obviously what she saw stayed with her. It was something shocking to her, and walking in and catching this, it seems very real, what we're hearing, and I think it goes a long way in helping the prosecution in this case against R. Kelly. It's just, as you said, it kind of fits in with everything that we're hearing about him and his propensity for young girls.
Casey, the allegation is he's running a criminal enterprise to accomplish just what is being alleged by this witness.
Yeah, I agree partially with some of the supporters protesting that the criminal enterprise is not just R. Kelly alone. That is true. However, you kill the head, you kill the body. In this case, R. Kelly, he was the mastermind. He had the not only the fame, the fortune, the celebrity, but he also had control. So R. Kelly's participation in hearing the testimony, it appears that these witnesses came off credible. I'm curious to see how the cross-examination of these witnesses went as well.
All right, Julia Janae, Court TV legal correspondent. An assistant, a former assistant of R. Kelly, someone from the inside, from in his world, also testified, Diana Copeland. What did she testify to?
Well, Diana Copeland was on the stand 2 days. Today was her last day of direct and then fully on cross-examination. And she told this jury that there were strict, stringent rules that the defendant had for his female guests, for his girlfriends, that one of them was, that she was actually fined for, was calling Ubers to help pick them up, that they had to be female, not male. If a male showed up, whoever arranged that ride would get in trouble. She also talked about a letter that the defendant asked her to write, saying that his lawyers wanted her to write it. And here's a bit from that letter. She said, she wrote, "Dear Robert, this is the hardest letter to write. I have stolen money from you. I'm truly disappointed in myself and ashamed. You are a forgiving person. You're giving and loving. I don't feel that I deserve your love. I will never betray you again, and I love you." And then after that letter was read in court, the prosecutor asked, just to be clear, did you ever steal anything from the defendant? And the witness said, no, this was not something that she had actually done. It was something that he asked her to do. Now, on cross-examination, they were able to ask her about those Uber rides, saying that this was actually a security measure to make sure that only female drivers were around the girlfriends. And the defense attorney, Deborah O'Canick, he asked, wasn't there certain language from the prosecution, as in Kelly said that he directed you or commanded something to happen? Is that actually your words or the prosecutor's words? And the witness, Copeland, she said that she adopted that language that they used, but that the prosecutors didn't suggest what she should use. But she did agree that this defendant was a loving person who was very generous, and that even having her write that letter, she said, came after a misunderstanding where they had separated the employment relationship, and she was trying to come back, and that misunderstanding was never resolved, but this letter helped to resolve things. So she ultimately seemed to be a neutral witness in the way that she testified on direct and on cross-examination.
All right, Julia Janae in Brooklyn, New York tonight. A lot more still ahead in that case. We'll continue to follow it. We'll talk to Julia a little bit later in the show.